It's one of the better adaptations of a novel ever. It's the 1979 movie directed by Roman Polanski. It's Tess. Let's talk about it and analyze it. Coming up next. Right, so as I said, Tess is a 1979 movie directed by the Polish-French director Roman Polanski. Let me just say up front, I find Roman Polanski's actions despicable. You can go read about them on the internet, but the interesting thing about this movie is he made this movie and then he did what he did. Yeah, he committed statutory rape and he admitted to it. How can you make Tess and do that? Well, Tess is about the injustices surrounding a young English teenage girl circa the late 1800s. It's based on the great and famous English novel by the English novelist Thomas Hardy, Tess of the D'Urbervilles. As a period piece and as a costume drama, Tess really excels visually, cinematographically. Beautiful movie to look at, amazing landscapes, amazing shots of characters in this movie throughout. At the same time, that's juxtaposed with the terrible hardships that the main character, Tess, undergoes. At the beginning of the movie, we see her as a young, poor girl in a farming family. Well, a rich man takes a liking to her and woos her and seduces her and eventually rapes her. She's impregnated by this man who is a nasty jerk in so many ways. She goes back to her farming community. It turns out she's pregnant. She has the baby. The baby ends up dying a little bit later on. This movie is going to have lots of time jumps, lots of time lapses. It's going to take place over a number of years. Eventually, Tess goes to work for a dairy farm and she's milking cows. Well, there the farmer named Angel Clare takes a liking to her too. He woos her, he seduces her, and they end up getting married. But Tess has the secret of having sex and of having a child. Well, turns out on their wedding night, Angel has something to confess to her. Tess has tried to tell her husband or would-be husband several times about her past, but hasn't been able to for various reasons. So she thinks, okay, he told me about his past, now I'll tell him about mine. And what follows is one of the more unjust scenes and one of the more enraging scenes I've found ever in movies. The whole movie, as Thomas Hardy's novel was, is about the injustices done to this poor farm girl. The cruelties of English society in the Victorian period. A society which, let's face it, just about everybody in this movie is mean, obtuse in their own little world, or cruel in some way besides Tess. And the movie throws a lot of emotional weight behind this main character, played here by Natassha Kinski. Tess is what they would call in the 19th century a fallen woman. She's not been married, but she's had sex and been impregnated. Sadly, for many fallen women, if not most, they are blamed, in fact, for the rapes done to them for having sex. They are blamed for being single mothers. So really the whole movie is about Tess's plight, first becoming a single mother, and that past always following her around.
That if either of you know any impediment why you may not be lawfully joined in matrimony, ye do now confess it.
Why should you watch this movie? First, I find this movie takes place in the world or even the universe of Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, a costume drama, a period piece I did a video on where everyone's cruel and it's about the quiet hate of noble people or well-dressed people. In the case of Barry Lyndon, it's mostly in the world of aristocrats, whereas Tess is more in a lower class world. Nevertheless, everybody in Tess, like in Barry Lyndon, as I said, is nasty, cruel, mean, or just plain dumb. Even the preachers, even the pastors, even the English vicars. And because Barry Lyndon was so influential with its, first of all, great use of no lighting, I think Tess picks up on that. Polanski uses a lot of low-key lighting, although he does light things differently than Barry Lyndon. And both stories, both Barry Lyndon and Tess, are in the realm of naturalism. That is, humans being unable, mostly, if not completely, to control their environment. In fact, their environment shapes them. Tess is a woman, basically, who lives her life without any choices. She's forced from one situation to another situation. She can never escape the two major men who become a part of her life. Meanwhile, the one man who is helping her, at least economically in her life, her father, dies quickly. This gives her and her mother and her sisters and brothers a lot of hardships. In fact, in this naturalistic movie, I think you're supposed to contrast the beauty, the wonderful aesthetics of the landscape with the people in it who suffer terrible hardships. Remember, this movie is taking place in the 19th century, the late 19th century. Compare your lives today, wherever you are, with the lives of these people, and just think 120 years ago, this is the way people lived. As a naturalistic movie, it's actually highly realistic. It wants to show you how they milk cows and how they got milk by hanging up milk bladders and having the milk actually seep through the bladder. It shows you actual harvesting and actual harvesters. So you've got beauty, you've got realism, you've got cruelty, and Tess is the subject of this whole film as an object of cruelty to be acted upon by basically everyone, especially the male characters.
What are you crying for?
I was only thinking I was born over there.
Well, we all have to be born somewhere.
I wish I'd never been born there or anywhere else.
You're absurdly melancholy, Tess.
I always love Polanski's visuals. Just about every movie he makes is just wonderful to look at, period. Great photographer's eye. Great individual shots in this, as I've said. You can take individual shots from this movie, put it in your computer background, make a printout of it, and hang it on your wall. And yet at the same time, you have sort of this melodramatic photography at times. At the same time, what's happening in the frame, the actual content, is something usually pretty terrible to Tess. For example, when she's seduced and then raped by the man who impregnates her. The movie throws a ton of weight, as I said, behind Tess, and it will enrage you. It will spark up your notion of justice and injustice. What I like about this movie then is how it makes you, I hope at least you do reflect on this, think about why you think this movie is unjust. In fact, where do your principles of injustice come from? Are they created by you? Created by society? Are they innate? Are they universal? Are they conventional? Now, the movie never really actually talks about that, but I think Thomas Hardy wants to bring that up in his work, and then that's bled, or it comes into the movie's plot and the way Polanski has shot his movie. Why is it fundamentally unjust that Tess has happened to her what happens to her? The final scenes of this movie are mystical and strange because of the setting they take place in. I will not spoil it, but you are supposed to reflect on where the characters go at the very end of the movie and why the end of the movie takes place there. If you want to talk about that, let's talk about that in the comments section below. Because of the hard edge of this movie, because of the influence from Barry Lyndon, because Polanski has a great eye, I really love him as a director all the way through his career, you really should give Tess a try, even if you think the plot is not interesting to you, or the setting, or something like that. There's a reason this movie's in the Criterion Collection. It belongs there. Put it on a big screen, please. It should not be watched on a small screen, given all the great visuals in it. Tess is one of the best, I think, period pieces ever made in film that is certainly mainstream, and basically anybody interested in this kind of movie could watch it. Have you seen it? What do you think of Tess? Let us know in the comments. Oh, and please subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.